understand why he is a bit emotional. He has some top players in the world and they should be doing a lot better than that. You would be sad if your team gets as clearly dominated by an opponents who have been built on 10% of the budget. Now that was Jose Mourinho's comment after beating Manchester United in the UEFA Champions League with Porto. This is the measure of the man who came to coach Manchester United in 2016. A coach who went on after that famous win to win the Champions League with Porto, to win their domestic cups and league, to lead Chelsea, a club who had not known such success, to years of success rivaling Sir Alex Ferguson for many years, and Wenger, and creating these enigmatic stories that would sensationalize football media for times to come. This is the man who in 2016, after years of United seemingly lost at sea after Ferguson's departure, was the man who was to come in and bring success to United in the shortest possible time. This week on Grizzens, we're going to be speaking about the special one's reign at Manchester United. And if you don't know who the special one is by now, you're going to understand why this man is the special one and what made his reign, at least to me, at United, something of a moment or an opportunity we missed on. So let's get straight into it. So Jose Mourinho at this time coming to United in 2016. Let's be real. United, after Ferguson left, after winning that Premier League campaign, almost like what Klopp is trying to do right now. You know the end was coming and you're trying to ride off into the sunsets. When Fergie did that, right, no one knew what to expect. And I'll talk for me. Personally, I was disappointed when he said Moyes should have been the one to take over from him. Like, seriously, no. Nah, bro. I don't know what you guys laughed about or joked about at the English pubs or your secret men clubs or whatever it is you guys do that have that kind of cash. But nah, bro. Moyes was never going to be the guy. And the season before Mourinho came in, it was season with Van Gaal, and I think they had won the FA Cup. So it didn't end all bad. It wasn't a great finish in the league, but I don't think it was as low as when Mourinho took over the first season, which was 6th place. And they let go of Van Gaal, I think at the time people were really tired of the style of play. They didn't like it. It wasn't interesting. United fans have this big thing about style of play there. They're enamored by the style of play thing. Sometimes I'm really conflicted by this argument of style of play versus results and trophies and whatever. But the point is, they got rid of him. And Mourinho at the time was out of a job. Now imagine, this guy came back to Chelsea. And Chelsea won the league. And there was some stuff that went down. And they sacked him. Bad results, the usual Mourinho storyline. We can't deny it. No matter how much you rate the man, there is a trend here. And the trend was starting to show itself. Maybe a little earlier than it normally does. But they let him go. So United went for Mourinho. And it makes sense, In 2016, it would have been some time now. 3-4 seasons since Fergie left. Not even a sniff of anything that looks remotely like success, And Mourinho is a serial winner. So they brought him in. Massive campaign. They brought in Pogba, Zlatan, and it lifted the moods. At least it lifted my moods. Because now you're thinking like, maybe this might be it. This might be the moment when everything kickstarts. Remember, this guy's CV up to this point, 2 Champions League, 1 with Inter, 1 with Porto, 3 Premier Leagues, Chelsea, 2-time Serie A champion, La Liga champion, 2-time Portuguese champion, Spanish Super Cup, English Super Cup, Portuguese Super Cup winner, 3 English League Cup winner, 3-time English League Cup winner, English FA Cup and Portuguese winner, Italian Cup winner. The guy had a trouble with Inter. He's legendary. Like, really, he is. So, he would have come in and would have been tasked with the challenge of trying to get us back into the Champions League, as well as, obviously trying to win the Premier League. That would have been quite a feat. The fans were really fed up with Van Gaal. They said we were too defensive. Ironically, they went to Jose. They said the style of play was boring. And I think we came 5th that year. That was the year Leicester won. So Jose came in, So this guy was born in Portugal. So let's just give a quick run through on this guy. Not necessarily just his CV, but some bio on this guy. He was born 26th of January 1963. The dude could have literally been my father. So he studied sports science at the Technical University of Lisbon and spent 5 years teaching in schools. In 1992, he became an interpreter. So this is pivotal in his career now. He became an interpreter for Sir Bobby Robson. And I think that's a United legend as well. When he got a job, so he became the interpreter for Sir Bobby Robson when he got a job at Sporting Club Portugal. He followed Robson to FC Porto in December 1993 and followed him to Barcelona in 1996. You see the trend here? Now, Mourinho stayed on after Robson, working for Louis van Gaal. This you can't make this stuff up, right? And this is where Mourinho would have learned or been able to apply a lot of his ideas and thoughts while watching and learning from these coaches and being taught, in a sense, in this Barcelona style of football, which everybody credits to Cruyff, right? So Mourinho is quoted as saying, "I was more influenced by Barca's philosophy than by any other coach. They were 4 years of my life absolutely fundamental." That's important to know, because a lot of people give him a lot of flack for his parking the bus tactics and being too pragmatic. And everybody praises Pep Guardiola because of the tiki-taka football and the endless passes that gets made per game and quote-unquote beautiful football. But I just wanted to show you how two people can come through the same same school of thought, of training, be taught in the same way, same philosophy, but the interpretation of that philosophy is different. And that's how I see it. So, this is Mourinho now, 2016. This is Man United. Just won the FA Cup. Came 5th. And now Mourinho has this team in Europa League and needs to qualify for Champions League and make some miracle in the league. And let me just burst the bubble. The team wasn't good enough to really push on in the Premier League. I think that magic that Fergie had, when you look at some of those teams Fergie had, especially towards the end, those teams were not good. But for those teams to be able to do what they did and compete the way they did for the years that they did, it has to be magic in layman terms. There's no other way you can explain it. And so you have Mourinho coming in, and the team would have been composed, these were some of the players that he would have signed or had the club try and get for him. Paul Pogba, Eric Bailly, Zlatan, we said 2 of those already. Henrik Mkhitaryan, right? He had him come in. And in the January of that same season, they would have had some they didn't get any new signings in the January, but they had some players that left. So Memphis Depay, which was there from the season before, Bastian Schweinsteiger left, Morgan Schneiderlin left, right? So those were some of the departures that would have left in the January of Mourinho taking over. Mourinho is arguably Manchester United's best coach / manager since the Sir Alex Ferguson era has ended. And to me, there's no doubt about this. I mean, the record stands for itself. I understand that how he may have left and that last season would have been quite bitter to the taste for many fans. But let's just take a quick look at some stats. And we know stats isn't everything, but let's just go by the stats, right? So there's been David Moyes, Louis van Gaal, Jose, Ole, now Eric Ten Hag. I didn't include the caretaker dude. That's a blip on the whole map. And his stats are horrible anyways. So everybody's hailing Eric Ten Hag right now as like this revelation for Manchester United. Barring how this season has gone, people were losing their minds last season over him, right? So his record after playing 79 games, that's when I would have collected this data. At 79 games, he would have won 49, draw 9, lost 21, with a goal against of 1.18 and a goal for of 1.67. So he has a 62% win ratio, right? Ole, which a lot of fans loved and they claim that he brought back the spirit of Manchester United, let's put it that way, or that essence of our style of play. He had 167 games, 91 wins, 37 draws, 39 losses, 1.017 goals against per game, or however you read that, 1.84 goals for, win ratio 54. Jose, 58% win ratio. He played 144 games at the helm for United, 184, drew 32, lost 28. Goals against 0.84. Goals for 1.69. Louis van Gaal, even less, 103, 54 wins, 25 draws, 24 losses. Goals against 0.95. Goals for 1.53, 52% win ratio. And the one that kind of surprised me a bit, Moyes played 51, 127, drew 9, lost 15, goals against 1.06, goals for 1.69. So out of all these coaches, for me, just going by the numbers, it's evident that Jose is the best. Now, some might say, but ETH has 62% win ratio. But when you really look at the breakdown, that 62% is obviously going to drop now. You know, the more games he's played, you're going to see that fall off. And I think I have to give some credit to Ole for running 167 games and having that competitive of a stats says something. But personally for me, Ole, even how Ole got that job is crazy. And I honestly do think that all Ole really brought to the team, and this could be very unfair, but to me, his track record before getting the United job, to me, I think he only brought vibes to the club, and the vibes was able to help to a point. COVID also helped to a point, because that break in the season and then that uptick in performance during that makeshift way to end the season. I think that was also the only season Liverpool won a trophy as well, ironically. But the Jose period was a true test, and there's something interesting that I want to point out with the time period in which Jose would have had the team, right? So that team at that time would have had a lot of these star names that we would have come to know into the Ole time period, and at that time they were young starlets: Pogba, Lingard, Rashford. Who else was there? You had Chris Smalling, Jones, Sergio Romero, Tuanzebe. These were the young bloods of the team. Under Herrera was young, relative, but not as young as like a Lingard and Rashford. But the point is, this team under Mourinho at that time, they were benefiting from the experience of Zlatan, Rooney, Antonio Valencia. The Zlatan, Juan Mata, Rooney link up was something to behold, especially during the Europa League matches. Henry Mkhitaryan had his moments sprinkled in there as well, coming through. So these guys were like your nucleus. David De Gea in goal. These guys were like your nucleus for that Manchester United team. And what you notice happening is that nucleus was practically gone by the next season. Like, their impact on the team was non-existent, primarily due to injury. In Juan Mata's case, I think maybe legs. He just got phased out. I don't really remember right now, but their impact was gone, and the dynamic of the team changed. And something that really struck me is in that podcast that Ole did when he mentioned that time when he was looking to give someone the armband to captain, and it's like everybody was shying away from stepping up to the plate, stepping up and taking that responsibility to say, hey, I'm going to lead the team. I'm going to be the leader that goes out there in the line of fire. And no one not wanting to step up and take that just shows you the character of the team. And if you know Zlatan, you know Rooney, you have your Juan Mata, you have your Valencias, you have your Michael Carricks. These guys are guys who have developed strong characters over the years. They are experienced players at this stage in their life. Who they are as a football is already well defined, well edged out. And so when you have these pillars in your team, the young ones can be afforded the opportunity to be young ones and to develop and to find themselves and to grow. They lost that, and I think that was the fundamental piece in what would have eventually led to Jose's downfall at United. Because we know about the Pogba bust up. They tried to get that guy from Arsenal. I'm terrible with names, by the way, so like names will just elude me. Alexis Sanchez, that was a failed transfer. Things just weren't coming together. Eric Bailly was good in moments, and then he kind of just fell off. I guess that maybe is a confidence thing. But when you really look at the team, and I really believe once Zlatan wasn't in it anymore, and they lost the influence of Rooney and no more Carrick, Juan Mata wasn't impactful on the squad, Mkhitaryan not becoming the type of player that I guess Jose would have seen him to be in his team. The responsibility fell now to the younger guys, your Rashfords, your Pogbas, your Lingard, and your Luke Shaw, put that in course. These guys now would have had to become the senior men, and it is evident that they weren't ready for it, and they've never really become mature enough to be ready for it. Because even now, to think people see Rashford in the light that they do see him, and when you see his performances on the pitch now versus during those early phases, the Van Gaal, the Jose time periods, it's night and day, like night and day. But for me, there's not been a coach at the club since Jose, with the exception of Van Gaal, that has brought that level of tactical, defensive rigidity, soundness in play. A coach that required certain types of personality and responsibility of players. Ironically, ETH does a lot. I don't know why I call him ETH. Eric Ten Hag does a lot of things to me that's similar to what Mourinho would have done, and he doesn't get quite the same amount of flack for it, but he's getting some flack now because of some crazy comments. And I just want to say that to have won what Mourinho won in his first season, there's been no coach that has won a European trophy for the club other than Fergie, right? And that's the biggest, let it not be disputed as not being it. It is the biggest trophy we've won since Fergie has left. It's not the FA Cup, it's not the Carabao Cup. It is the biggest cup that we've won. And the difficulty of winning it is shown by Ole going all the way to the finals and having the team. A lot of people like to put that finals on the hair, but when you go to a penalty shootout, guys, it really is a toss of the coin. No matter what you want to think as somebody that sits on the couch watching the TV, it really is a toss of the coin. And if Ole really had it tactically in him to do, that match should have been won before it went to penalties. And Jose can tell you, he brought Roma to the Europa finals and they tried to win that match before the penalties. And there were some questionable calls made that forced that game to penalties and they lost it. Coaches know you don't really want to carry a match to penalties. It's too much of a gamble. So you really do all you can to win that game during the game or even in extra time. That to me just shows you that the measure of who the coach was is what the coach was. And there has not been another one to do what he has done. Yeah, Ole has taken a second, but like I said, there's always going to be an asterisk on the COVID season. And it's for good measure. Teams were playing differently before COVID broke the season. United was playing differently. Forms were different. Everything would have been different and the reset would have caught many in a different position. Yes, the restart would have come equally for everyone, but momentum of where you were before, a team that probably was performing well would have lost that. But as it always is with football, recency bias is always what defines in the moment your legacy. So what is Jose Mourinho's legacy at United? Is he loved and revered or remembered as he would often like to say he is in many of his interviews? To be honest with you, I don't know. I'm nowhere near where Manchester is in England, so I have no idea what the fans in Manchester feel or think of Jose Mourinho. But I can tell you, for me, I would always love to see him back at the club, but only in the right circumstances and only under the right circumstances, meaning the club has issues. They need to fix that from the top down. The structure needs to be clear. We need to, everyone needs to understand how these new players are found, who has the say in picking the squad. All of these things must be clear and without confusion. Until we have that kind of structure there, we're going to always have madness happening at the club, no matter which coach comes in. And I think a lot of coaches are realizing that now. They're realizing that there's something awry with the structure. So where is his legacy? Like I said, a lot of fans are all about style of play. So once it comes to that type of argument, he's not going to be looked at as being, something that was good for the club. The season when we came second and the season following that when he got sacked midway, the argument was that the team had become too defensive. We were even being defensive against quote-unquote teams which were at the lower end of the table. The style of play was dead. We weren't scoring enough goals, or we didn't look beautiful enough going forward scoring goals. People were even annoyed with Fellaini being deployed oftentimes as a solution to get goals in. In that season when we came second, that was the birth of the Scott McTominay, the Scott that we know today that people hate on. That season was the birth of Scott McTominay. Remember, during his time, people gave him flack saying that Mourinho doesn't break in new players. And to this day, Scott McTominay has demonstrated, regardless of whether you think he has the skills or not, that he is in his heart a true and true loyal Manchester United player. He fights for the badge and he continues to score despite his status amongst the fans and the team almost always in question. So I saw this tweet, and this is to give you a picture of where Mourinho stood before he got sacked. In the 17-18 season, United conceded just 28 goals. In the season that followed, the 18-19 season, before he got sacked, they already conceded 29 goals. That's crazy. And that would have been the season following the World Cup. There are a lot of things here we must put into context, This is a season that was following the World Cup. Pogba, a lot of his players would have participated in this tournament, and they would have came back late in preparation. I mean, this isn't unique to United, but remember what we talked about with the pillars, not having that foundation there, that leadership in the team outside of the coaches and the managers. It would have been non-existent, and we know that because even under Ole time, when Ole was bringing the vibes, you see that the players sell even Ole out. And if a man who come and give the vibes, the man who put him hand around your shoulder, which a lot of these crybabies were crying for, we want a coach that comes and hugs us and say, Care Bear time, let's give each other a hug, because everything is hearts and, flowers. This guy came and gave you that. And they weren't even willing to fight for him towards the end. Even coming off of the season, the COVID season that they came off of, they sold him out. This was the state of United when Mourinho left, right? And I think they sacked him. Hold on, let me bring it up, because I made sure to look this up specifically. Right, so they sacked him after the loss to Liverpool, right? They lost 3-1. And this was on the 16th of December 2018. It was an away game. They lost 3-1. Now, I'm seeing if I can find it back here. There was something I read where, these articles always gonna paint the picture in doom and gloom. And it's all about how you mix the numbers around. But let's not get it twisted. It was, from what I can remember, at that time, it was a difficult period for United. Coming off of that World Cup, we were not playing very well. I think that lost to Crystal Palace, Pogba's attitude and his issues with Jose Mourinho, Luke Shaw, these different players having issues with the coach. It was plaguing the team, and you could see it. The team was heavy down. Martial, attitude, the coach, same thing again. So this was in one of those articles at the time. The Red Devils had a miserable start to the season, which is true, sitting 10th in the Premier League after 9 games. The misery has been compounded in the Champions League, where they have won just 1 of their 3 group games to date. Right? Now let's look at the run of fixtures up to that Liverpool loss. This is just Premier League now. So they would have played the week before Liverpool. They played Fulham. They won 4-1. They played Arsenal. Draw 2-2. They played Southampton. Draw 2-2. They played Crystal Palace. They drew 0-0. So it probably wasn't the Crystal Palace match that Pogba had that terrible game in. I don't remember. But I do remember there was a game running up to that Liverpool game, man, where it was just shambolic, the type of performance. I think his lack of concentration in the middle exposed United again and gave away a goal, I'm almost certain. But I don't remember which game that was. We lost 3-1 to City. Then we beat Bournemouth 2-1. We beat Everton 2-1. We drew with Chelsea 2-2. We beat Newcastle 3-2. And by this Newcastle match, this would have been October now, the 6th of October. We lost to West Ham 3-1. We drew with Wolves 1-1, beat Watford 2-1, beat Burnley 2-love, lost to Tottenham 3-love. So now we're in August. This is August 27. We lost to Brighton 3-2. And we won our first match of the season against Leicester 2-1. Right? So in those run of games from the start of the season to when he got fired, we lost just 5 times. You hear that? We lost 5 times. We drew 5 times. Yeah, I got that right. Right? We drew 3 times close to the end, 2 times before that. Yeah, so we drew 5 times and we won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. We won 7 times, which I think is what it said. Yeah, we won 7 times, which I think is what it said. So we won 7, drew 5, lost 5. I don't think, personally, looking at this agnostically, that that's the worst run of matches. I mean, even with the Liverpool loss, the last time we won was against Bournemouth, and our record after that was loss, 3 draws, win, and a loss. You see Pochettino right now at Chelsea doing the mad thing. Crazy. Yeah, I've seen coaches do the mad thing at other clubs and they still held their job. Graham Potter before Poch was doing the mad thing at Chelsea and they were holding on to him like he was England's great white hope. It's crazy. It's evident to me at least that you can't talk about what United is as a club and the heights they've reached and not mention Jose Mourinho. And that alone has to credit him as being one of our most successful managers since post the Fergie era. Has to. Barring how that last season went, there were a lot of things going against him and a lot of things he would have said that fans probably were upset with. But now many fans are coming back to his comments and trying to link them with what's happening at the club because I guess it's hard for the fan base to recognize that, hey, when Fergie left, when that other senior guy in Manchester United left just before Fergie, those 2 guys were the footballing minds of the club, or 2 of the footballing minds. And when they left, no one understood the gravity of the impact of the 2 of them leaving. And it has shown that the club was never in a position administratively to really move on after Fergie. They tried to move on in a business way by hiring coaches or getting certain marquee signings, Angel Di Maria, Memphis Depay, different type of players that they thought, your Romelu Lukaku, Pogba. They tried to buy these guys that maybe would create some shock value into the market, drive the fan base, energize the fan base. Jose Mourinho, they brought in Ole as a caretaker and then gave him the job at the end of the season when he was really only supposed to be there for them to find a successful or suitable candidate. And they gave him the job because why? He was there, the usual. Coach comes in after coach gets fired. Atmosphere is lifted, players play better. Because let's be real, guys, it's football. Football is football. No matter what tactics you want to play, you just need to score goals to win the game. And we are where we are today, right now. And we can see that there's something wrong with the team. And I think the team lacked leadership, which is one of the things which Ole brought out. And I think that's one of the things which Jose struggled with. And that's probably part of the reason why he had that bust up with Pogba. When I look back on it, even though Pogba wasn't the only one that was up in that room and was doing social media posts and stuff, and you can listen to Pereira's take on it. It really was blown out of proportion, but I do understand why he would have taken, well, from the outside at least, the team lacked leadership. And there hasn't been anyone at the club since Zlatan, Rooney, that really embodied that type of figure that would galvanize a dressing room, that would take the pressure off other players, but hold the other players accountable at the same time. That Roy Keane type of, personality, mentality, that guy, the captain, that solid base in the team, it wasn't there. The mediator between the coach and the players, it wasn't there. The mediator who understands the mind of the coach to the core and can translate that for the players so the players can understand what's happening. The players can then, drive and be better. It wasn't there. And it's still not there to this day. It's not there under Eric Ten Hag. And it's evident it wasn't there under Ole. And Eric Ten Hag is his own madness as well. And that's showing in the Cristiano Ronaldo scenario. It seemed as though that was a one-off. It's coming up back now with Sancho. And the apparent bias that seems there for Rashford and Anthony when they're not performing. So, for me, when the question comes up, who is the most successful coach since Sir Alex? You can't have that conversation and not bring up Jose Mourinho. His record speaks for itself to date.